stand here today to introduce our speaker, a man whom the people of Colorado elected to the U.S. Senate in 2008, a man who has also served as Colorado's 2nd District Congressman for 5 terms. In the Senate, Senator Udall serves on 4 committees: Armed Services, Energy and Natural Resources, and the Select Committee on Intelligence, and the Special Committee on Aging. Reinforcing his priority of protecting our western lands, Senator Udall chairs the National Parks Subcommittee of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. Senator Udall's committee assignments give him a platform to address many issues very important to Colorado. In addition, Senator Udall is a co-sponsor of Senate Bill 484, the Native American tuition waiver bill that is so important to Fort Lewis College. Senator Udall is known for reaching across party lines to solve problems, and for his willingness to work with people, including those with whom he has philosophical differences. In 2011, he drew national attention for calling on his colleagues to bridge the partisan divide by sitting together rather than separated by party at the President's State of the Union address. His inclusive and bipartisan approach has also led to a number of legislative achievements, including bills to reduce wildfire risk and bark beetle infestation, and legislation promoting the development of Colorado's aerospace industry and the clean energy and high technology sectors. Although Senator Udall was born in Tucson, Arizona, he has spent his entire adult life in Colorado. His family, including his father, Mo Udall, his uncle, Stuart Udall, and his cousin, Tom Udall, have a history of public service. It is my honor to present to you a public servant, a friend of education, a supporter of Fort Lewis College, Senator Mark Udall.
Well, thank you, President Thomas. Good morning to all of you. I promised to keep politics out of my talk to you all this morning, but I appreciate the fact we talk about policy because we're going to stand up for Fort Lewis College going forward. And in that spirit, I want to pay particular allegiance to and respect to the first Americans who are here today, our Native American brother and sisters and their families. President Thomas, Provost Morris, the Board of Trustees, deans, members of the faculty, parents, friends, and honored guests, it's always a treat to be in southwestern Colorado. It's not tough duty to come to Durango. Let's get at it, though. Have you all been out to the clock tower? Have you gotten your photo taken? You're going to get it done, right? Because it'll be fun to look back in 10 or 20, maybe even 30 years from now, and you'll have a visual reminder of how this place influenced you. And you will, I tell you without doubt, you will not look any older than you do today. This school is just surrounded by such remarkable landscapes, the campus in the sky. And between the mountains and the rivers, the deserts and the canyons, there's more than enough to have kept you busy in the outdoors before and after your classes. And I think your professors are staring at me right now, but I think maybe, I dare say, sometimes during your classes. And I'm reminded of that saying, don't let your schooling get in the way of your education. And I got to tell you, I think here at the fort, you've had the opportunity to make the best of both worlds. And I think I even understand, President Thomas, that you now have a degree, the adventure education degree, where you meld those worlds together. Yes. And I got to tell you, not many of your peers or even people across the world can say they have had the access and the opportunity to fall in love with the outdoors every day like you have. I'd have done anything to have had a resource like Outdoor Pursuits during my college days. You all know the story, back when we had to climb mountains barefoot, in the snow, uphill both ways. I went to Williams College, a small liberal arts college in New England, where I have to confess the mountains are wider than they are tall. But we had an interesting structure academically. We had what we called a 414, and in January you could pursue one single subject for the entire month. And I decided to see what it would take to become a real winter mountaineer. So I went to my faculty advisor, and I had to use all of my charm. I didn't have much, and a lot of pleading to convince my advisor to give me credits for participating in an outward bound January ski course in Colorado. So for 3 weeks I lived in snow caves in the San Juan Mountains, just to the north of here. And the high point literally for me during that 3-week time frame was standing on the 14,000-foot summit of Wetterhorn on a cold, clear, drop-dead gorgeous winter day with 3,000 feet of powder awaiting below me. And the rest, they say, is history. I went full steam ahead with the crazy idea of making my living in the Colorado mountains. I grew a massive beard. Unfortunately, some of those photos are still floating around on the internet, so that's a reminder to you all too. And then I spent 20 years as a mountain guide and an outdoor educator with the Colorado Outward Bound School. So with that all in mind, I hope you'll indulge me, because I don't want to talk to you just as a United States Senator, but as an old mountain climber and someone who had the good fortune to be able to follow my dreams when I graduated from college. And I want to highlight for you what I think is the value of taking risks, of going on adventures, of dreaming up something crazy and seeing where it takes you. Now let me add a caveat. You know, we're living in a really unsettled world right now, one where our country's still digging out of a global fiscal meltdown, one where you may have to move into your parents' basement because internships don't cut it, they don't pay the bills, or where a degree doesn't guarantee you a job, and a job doesn't mean you can afford more than ramen noodles. So with all that lack of certainty and stability, all that built-in risk, why am I standing up here espousing a life of adventure? And to answer that question, I want to talk about my mother. She was a native Coloradan, and she was as adventurous as they come. She was a pilot, she was a climber, she not only rode horses, she jumped horses in competition, she hiked, she was an angler, and I found out later in life she was a card-carrying member of the National Rifle Association. She Representative Brown likes that too, back over here. She raised 6 kids, and she was the one that got us out into the backcountry. And we all thrive because of people like her who make space in their lives for adventure, who thirst for a better understanding of the world, who see the possibilities entwined with the risks. And she also showed me that there isn't an age limit to living a life less ordinary. In her mid-50s, she volunteered for the Peace Corps and shipped off to Nepal, where she helped Nepali women with microloan projects. She taught the Royal Nepal Airline pilot cadre how to better fly, and she studied Buddhism. That's quite a trifecta. And I was really lucky to have her influence in my life, because she was an incredible example that your attitude dictates the altitude of your adventures in your life. As an aside, I want you to all be good to your mothers, all right? I want you to love and appreciate your mothers. And I was just so lucky to have her in my life. And I climb mountains for the same reason that my mom joined the Peace Corps. We craved an adventure. And every adventure pushes me one step further than I've gone before, toward that new me that I know I can be, even at age 61, President Thomas. Pursuing a life focused on adventure has allowed me to find multiple callings. As an outdoor educator, as a head of a world-class organization, the Outward Bound School, and now as a public servant. And to this day, that informs the way I interact with my colleagues in Washington and the United States Senate and the work that I do there. Although I do have to tell you that, unlike when you're climbing a mountain, in politics, there's sometimes another team on that mountain, and they're trying to push you off. And as the Scots say, it's not the falling off that hurts, it's the sudden stop at the bottom. But I'll talk about that. Now look, that's not to say that your adventures will be all sunshine and smiles. There are 3 rules to mountaineering and to life. It's always farther than it looks, it's always taller than it looks, and it's always harder than it looks. But those are also the best reasons to give it a shot. And if I can change up my metaphors here, the Hockey Hall of Famer Wayne Gretzky observed, "You always miss 100% of the shots you don't take." And your 3-time national soccer champion team can attest to that. Do you think you would have brought home that trophy without shooting high and wide and off the woodwork, as well as finding the back of the net occasionally? So let me share another personal story to illustrate what I'm talking about. I don't know why, but I decided I want to climb Mount Everest. In 1994, a group of climbing buddies and I attempted a pretty dangerous mountain line on the north face, the White Limbo Route. It's only been climbed once in the history of the attempts. Well, why did we want to do that? Well, I think because it's there, because our self-doubt was only surpassed by our excitement. And we made it to 26,000 feet before 4 days of raging winds drove us back down the mountain. And to this day, I think about that 26,000 feet I survived, and I still dream of going that 3,000 feet to the summit. It's out there just waiting for me to have another go at it, because it's still there. And because just the thought of it makes my blood run hot and cold at the same time. And because sometimes climbing a mountain isn't about reaching the summit. It's about what you learn about yourself on the way up. George Mallory, some of you know of George Mallory. He was the British climber who quipped when he was irritated to a reporter in Philadelphia when he was asked why he wanted to climb Mount Everest. He said, because it's there. He was just trying to shed a reporter. I know that feeling as a politician. With all due respect to the reporters that might be here. But George Mallory was a wise man. He said to he wrote, "To struggle and to understand, never the last without the first." And so, for you Skyhawks, I wish for you a life of adventure. You owe yourself that 360-degree view from the summit. And I owe you a promise in the risks and the adventures in which I engage as a U.S. Senator, to keep fighting for common sense policies that strengthen the world that awaits you. And that means student loans that don't haunt you for decades into the future. That means a comprehensive energy policy that frees our country from foreign oil and limits or even eliminates the effects of climate change. And that means bipartisan plans like the Simpson-Bowles framework to reduce our national deficit and help our country win the global economic race. I call those goals my generational covenant with you, our shared set of adventures to come. The fort's given you an education, a community, special experiences for the past 4, 5, maybe 6 years. The rest, I'm fine with that, by the way. The rest is up to you. Mark Twain, who's always timely, seems eternal, he said, life ain't a dress rehearsal. He also said, suppose I was a member of Congress, and suppose I was an idiot, but I repeat myself. Ouch. I had to put that in there because he's such a wonderful American. So in the spirit of Mark Twain, jump on that stage. Look for adventure. How do you know it's there? Well, here are 3 of my principles. If you're scared, if you're excited, and if you don't know the outcome, that's an adventure awaiting you. And there's going to be a little voice in one ear saying, you don't have to do this. No one will notice if you take a pass. But there's going to be another voice. It's going to say to you, if I don't test myself, who will? And look, the adventures don't always come on Jagged Mountain's east face or no-name rapid on the Animus. I think the most demanding and satisfying ones are not just physical, but they're spiritual, they're intellectual, they're mental, and they're emotional. And they'll present themselves to you when you get your first job, you start a family, you go to grad school, you care for a grandparent, you pull together your savings and start a business. So let me share one of my adventures in that spirit. I'm running for state representative 16 years ago. Well, how do you run? You go out and listen. Well, how do you listen? You go knock on doors. So here I am. It's a late summer afternoon, 90 degrees. I'm 46 years old. I'm a successful businessman. I've climbed the 3rd highest mountain in the world. I've climbed Denali, the highest peak on our continent, the highest peak in South America, Aconcagua. And I'm sitting in my car, a hot car, watching the sun go down because I'm too scared to go knock on doors. I'm too afraid to take the first step off that rappel. You can imagine how disappointed I was in myself. But I went home, crafted a plan. The next day I went out 4 hours before the sun was going to set, so I couldn't sit in my car that long. I picked a door of a friend. He wasn't there. Those of you who've done campaigns, I wrote a little note, sorry to miss you, hope I can count on your vote. Went to the second door. Nice man came to the door. I engaged in a conversation with him. And as the conversation was unfolding, I had this feeling in the pit of my stomach. I should know him, that he was an important Democrat. And I decided to confess to him that I should know who he is. So I went into that confession. He stopped me midway through. He said, Mark, he said, don't worry about it. I'm actually the weatherman on Channel 4. And at that moment, I realized that this was going to be fun. That this was an adventure that would challenge me in every way possible. And moving forward, when I've knocked on doors, I've done everything from pulling weeds to eating pie. I've been a babysitter in an emergency. I've moved furniture. I've chased dogs and been chased by dogs. I've prayed, sometimes when those dogs are chasing me. You name it. But it's connected me to life. It's connected me to this wonderful country of America. And by the way, when I didn't climb Mount McKinley, as we know it, the native name is Denali, the first time. And I didn't navigate down Snaggletooth on the Dolores cleanly the first time. And I got cliffed out in the North Fork of the Robbers Roost Canyon over in Utah. I hope some of you have been there. But I learned more when I fell short. So savor your mistakes and your failures. Savor those mistakes and those failures. Then there are situations where, literally and figuratively, you're all in. And the only way home is over the top of the mountain. I had one of those experiences on Denali. 10 days into a 7-day climb, with only one rope, one small rack of gear, the only way home was over the top of Mount McKinley. The only way home was to ascend that 20,000-foot mountain. And knowing that, my partner and I were able to find the strength and the commitment to proceed. And when you're fully committed, anything is possible. Anything is possible. So let me close with 2 additional notes. All of us slightly older adults on both sides here, your parents, your family, your friends, we're really excited for you. We're proud of you. And we're eager for you to join us. Our country and our world need you. We're counting on you. We trust in you. So in the timeless words of Dr. Seuss, today is your day, your mountain is awaiting, so get on your way, class of 2012.
By the virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees for Fort Lewis College, and upon verification that you have successfully completed your prescribed course of studies, I confer upon each of you the appropriate degree with all the rights, honors, and privileges pertaining thereto. Congratulations, graduates. You may now move your tassel from the right to the left.